Heretic is a first-person shooter developed by Raven Software in 1994, which runs on the Doom engine and is one of the first of what came to be known as the Doom clones, which permeated the FPS genre during the mid-90s. And it is in a lot of ways very similar to Doom in terms of design and gameplay, however it stands out as a fantastic hardcore shooter that is still great fun to play. You take on the role of a lone elf named Corvus, heading off to defeat a serpent rider named the Sparrow. The Serpent Riders are a trio of demonic assholes that corrupted the armies of the world, setting humanity against each other and ripping apart the planet in the process. The elves, however, were resistant to the magic of the Serpent Riders and able to resist their influence, hence the title, Heretic. Corvus begins his journey in the ruins of the elvish capital, ultimately travelling through a hellish realm to the inevitable showdown against the Sparrow himself. Much like Doom, the game is broken up into 3 episodes, spread over 8 levels. Yet despite this, Heretic was still pretty innovative for its time. Most notably, it featured an inventory system that could be used to store items. The player could store things like health, which could be used during desperate moments. One of my favourite of these was something called the Tome of Power, which was a particularly badass item which could temporarily upgrade all of your weapons, making you practically unstoppable for a short amount of time. Or the Chaos device, which was kind of a last resort item which would transport you back to the start of the level if you're in a bind. It's something of a coward's way out, but like they say, he who fights and runs away lives to fight another day. The only downside to the item system is that you have to manually select which item you want to use, then activate it. There's no hotkeys or shortcuts, which can be a bit troublesome if you really need a health flask, for instance, mid-fight, and you've got hordes of enemies barrowing down on you. Luckily, the game includes a robust arsenal to defend yourself with. The weapons are all derivative of those seen in Doom. The elven wand is like the pistol, for instance. The ethereal crossbow functions like a shotgun. The dragon claw works like a minigun, and the phoenix rod and hellstaff control very similarly to the rocket launcher and plasma rifle respectively. The only real new addition is the fire mace and the gauntlets. The fire mace shoots out explosive spheres at a rapid rate, and the gauntlets are strictly melee, spewing out a burst of lightning at close range. These weapons are initially cool to use, but ultimately will take a backseat to more useful, effective options. In typical Doom fashion, it's not uncommon to have dozens of monsters on screen at any one time, with loads of projectiles flying in 100 different directions. And it's kind of astonishing just how effortlessly the engine performs during these moments. Raven Software have done a fantastic job of creating a really dark and foreboding atmosphere. The Doom engine is being used to its fullest with great lighting effects, varied textures and large-scale maps, which offer lots of variety across the game's 3 episodes. My favourite areas are those during the 3rd episode set in the Sparrow's underwater base. The combination of the creative water effects and the tile textures used for the environment is really appealing, and despite how old the engine is, this is still a great looking game for the most part. There's a lot of really good sound effects which also help to accentuate the action on screen, like the satisfying crunch when enemies are ripped apart by your crossbow. I also like the little triumphant laugh that Corvus lets off every time you pick up a weapon. It even directly mirrors the way Doom Guy would smile when he picks up a new gun. I'm not really fond of the music though, which isn't a reflection on the skills of the composer, Kevin Schalder. It's just that most of the stuff is really grating, atonal music that's not really nice to listen to. It fits in with the theme, feeling quite dark and gothic, but in terms of other game soundtracks of its time, it's definitely not my favourite. If you're playing on the hardest difficulty, which you really should be, Heretic is a satisfyingly tough game. The enemies are in abundance and they hit really hard, often forcing you into a corner, in which case you're pretty much screwed. When you get your hands on some of the better weapons like the Hellstaff and the Phoenix Rod, it can be a little bit easier, but overall this game is pretty damn hardcore. It's rare that you get a moment of peace, and most of the time you're circle strafing or moving backwards whilst your finger is firmly held down on the left mouse button. The 1st episode is definitely the hardest of the lot. Being the shareware episode that didn't give you access to all the weapons, something that was pretty standard for the time. Though what this means is that you often don't have ammo for anything other than the Elven Wand, and there's just not enough put in the levels to accommodate the amount of monsters. This doesn't happen so much in the later episodes, but ammo can still be a problem at times. It's a far cry from Doom where you were always well equipped and stocked up, and it seems in Heretic you have to be a little more mindful of what ammo you've still got left. So finally, should you play it? Yes, you should. It's one of the greatest FPS games of the 90s and debatably one of the greatest FPS games of all time, as it has a really dark, gritty theme that is still enjoyable to this day. The game hasn't really aged at all, but if you can't overlook the pixelated visuals, then there's numerous high-resolution mods available to give the game a bit of a spit shine. Lastly, it's a must-play because it sets the precedence for its sequel, Hexen, which improves it in every single regard. Most people watching this review would have already played Heretic at some point in their lives, but if you're one of those select few who haven't, then you really should make it your mission in life to seek this game out and finish it.